iPhone growth has lagged, right? I mean, this is something we've seen in China. The upgrade cycles have, I think, been better than many had feared, but it's not been eye-popping. And I think this is the start, we've talked about, of the renaissance of growth that's going to happen over the
Right.
next 12 to 18 months, where we believe Apple significantly outperforms even the rest of tech.
Is your reporting, Dan Ives, that the new iPhone that Paul Sweeney has to buy, what, four, Paul, for your
Oh
family?
yeah,
Is a
absolutely.
new iPhone an upgrade, or is it just another iteration of the one I got in my hands?
Look, I think in terms of iPhone 15, that's obviously just been an upgrade that's been strong from a technology around camera and speed. But the big one's iPhone 16. I mean, we've talked about it yesterday. Our checks are showing from a memory perspective, this is going to have AI technology built into the phone. I think
What
it's
does
the
that
start of
mean?
a
Stop,
game
stop.
changer.
Dan, stop. What in God's name did you just say? What is AI technology in Paul Sweeney's phone?
So they're going to have essentially their own LLMs, their own language models built into the actual iPhone. So that's going to be for consumers to do all types of apps that they could actually launch, technology around animation, what I from a fitness perspective, it's
Oh,
going to
there we go. The
create
fitness card.
it's going to create a whole nother ecosystem for Apple, which we believe starts with the AI App Store that they're
So,
going to talk about at WWDC in June.
as an example, Paul, you can type in on your iPhone 16, should I spend $3,900 to see Louisville lose to Duke?
Exactly.
And you'll
Or
get
buy
a
the screen
report.
Vision Pro,
Yeah.
or buy the Vision Pro. Hey Dan, we've got Apple, obviously a $2.9 trillion market cap stock. It's down about 3% year to date, and I would argue that I guess the investor concerns out there, if you could just underline one, it would be China. Give us your latest sense of China in terms of an end market, ultimate demand for Apple products going forward. What's your view?
Yeah, look, I'm not saying it's roses and champagne, but from a Lunar New Year perspective, we believe it's up year over year. And I think they're going to be able to actually return to growth in China, despite the Huawei, despite geopolitical, because you have 210 million iPhones in China, and there have been share gains. So my view here is right now, the New York City cab driver could be bearish in Apple. It's relative to broader tech as we expect, tech continue to move higher. But when we look at Apple, 2.2 billion, that's the active devices. Now AI is coming to the party in Cupertino, and we think a year from now we're at a $4 trillion market cap.
Hey Dan, the just looking at the FA function on the Bloomberg terminal, which has consensus revenue estimates for Apple over the next several years. Kind of, let's just call it mid-single digits. Yet I'm paying a 28 multiple for that type of revenue growth. How do you kind of square that? Is that something you have to convince your investor clients to kind of deal with?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to how what we did with Microsoft or Nvidia or Amazon. It's really showing that the
Right.
services piece, that high growth, the multiple for that, and Keene and I have talked about this a lot. I mean, 1.5 to 1.6 trillion, and that's the monetization. Why Cook and Company,
Right.
there's a Mount Rushmore with Tim Cook and Nadella,
But
obviously from Microsoft.
if
There,
these guys are, fanboys, I mean, if the CFO and the CEO are fanboys like Dan Ives, and they're looking at Apple behind over X number of months or whatever, do you see them doing strategic decisions like a new bond offering, an enhanced share buyback? Sweeney wants a dividend increase. What are they going to do with the use of the mother of all cash they've got, given that Apple's lagged?
well, I think it's getting to a point they're going to have to do potentially some accelerated buyback, or if they don't do M&A, which has never been the sort of the DNA, obviously, Cupertino, they're going to have to do some capital allocation changes. And look, and that's why it goes back to when I look at Apple from the sum of the parts, there's so much more that could go right than wrong, especially what's factored into the stock. And I think AI starts with the godfather of AI, Jensen, NVIDIA, and Microsoft, but it doesn't end there. The consumer piece is going to be 24 and 25, and Apple's going to be front and center.
Dan, you mentioned the developer conference in June for Apple, and oftentimes in the past, that's been a big catalyst for the company, for the stock. Give us a little preview of what we might see from our friends at Apple.
look, and I'm sure Germer will talk about this as well. I think it's where they start to introduce generative AI from a developer perspective. I think it starts with an AI app store. That's going to be the first piece, and then that's going to lead into an iPhone 16 that includes generative AI exclusive to Apple ecosystem, and it starts that monetization, and I think even a further re-rating to where I see that renaissance of growth
I
over the coming.
Okay, you're wired in this, Dan. I don't mean to interrupt, but I think this is critical. I get an iPhone 16 in 8 months. June, you said, so Labor Day, you get a new phone.
Yeah.
What am I going to AIEIEIO do? What am I actually going to do in AI on my iPhone?
So I'll just give you like an example. So you have a picture that you've taken on your iPhone 16. You now could actually superimpose you, Paul, at a Duke game, okay? And then basically take that picture, and it actually looks from an animation perspective that you're actually in the picture. And you can actually create movies from that. Those are
Okay.
examples of just a little tip of the iceberg in terms of the examples of what consumers, and I think Vision Pro, you're seeing some
Right.
remnants of that, but that's what you're going to essentially be able to do in the iPhone in the coming years.